Hello, I'm Michael Pease. I'm with Piloting Health and Wealth. I'd like to have a quick heads up on being fire ready. What gives me any authority to talk about this? Well, I've been a specialized firefighter for the last 28 odd years in various capacities. So over that length of time, I've seen an awful lot, both from the air and on the ground. And some of the knowledge I'm more than happy to share, and perhaps it's a very fortuitous time to do so. So, 3 simple words: prepare, act, and survive. It's a phenomenal little saying that can make all the difference in the world. So what we're going to do is just do some fire safety preparation ideas. We'll just discuss initially a fire in the house. At a little later date, we'll talk about things that you can do outside of the house to make things a little easier, or perhaps to mitigate the potential of losing the house as well. So inside this presentation, we'll just go through fire in the house, immediate actions, the fire secondary considerations, and number 3 is the fire. What home kit can we put together? What about car? What car kit can we put together? And perhaps the most important of all is the fire plan consideration. And that we will spend a little more time on, because being prepared can make the difference. So, house fire. What do we do immediately? Well, obviously, first thing, call 000. No questions, give them a call. Don't think that you can put the fire out. You're better off to call 000. It's easy enough to turn them back, but you're a sad day when you did need them and you delayed. You need to give them your name, your address, obviously, number of people that are on the premises, any special needs, such as wheelchairs, incapacitation. Perhaps you may have some unusual animals. Who knows? Ensure that everyone in the house is awake, is aware, and has been notified to get out. One of the best things, though, to a fire in the house is to stay low and to crawl, if anything. Basically, hot air and the smoke rises. So the lower you can get, the more clarity and safety you have in actual fact. So when you're low and you're crawling along, you go to your primary or your secondary escape doors or windows. Now, a lot of doors and houses nowadays have keys to unlock the security screen or the security door, that sort of stuff. So make sure that those keys are strategically placed and conveniently placed close to those particular houses or those particular doors, windows. It's important also by this point, hopefully, your important documents are either staying at a friend's place if you know there's a fire situation. If not, they are all kept in the same place. We'll talk more about that at this point shortly, is making sure that all your documents are in one particular place. So you just grab them and go. Making sure that your animals are caged. So you wear your cages and making sure the animals are caged. Animals can be extremely dangerous without a cage, especially around smoke and fire and when there's a lot of tension, things like that. So don't feel as though you don't have to cage your animal. I can assure you, cage your animals, birds, it's going to be far less of a worry, and that way you can control them a lot easier. House fire. What about secondary actions? Survival actions, obviously, regardless of the fire and how big or bad or strong or tough or hot it was, shock is going to be an issue. Tend to people's injuries. Burns, respiratory issues are a big concern. One of the biggest things with fires is that you get this radiated heat. Sometimes the actual flames, although hot, aren't as bad as this radiated heat. And that's the coals, if you will. So those can be extremely, when you go onto a barbecue, you are using the coals to cook. Well, they will do a nasty job to us. So burns are inevitable, unfortunately. So protecting from radiated heat is good. Anytime there's a fire, you get incredibly hot vapors in the air. So respiratory things are a big problem as well. Making sure that you can mitigate those issues by a screen or a mask on the face, and obviously being low or crawling along the ground is far more advantageous. Making sure that you're well hydrated. When you're working around fires or when you're in a fire, one has a tendency of using up a lot of moisture in the body. So hydrate. Having water, copious quantities of water, is to your advantage. Having a first aid kit is to your advantage, obviously. And of course, drinking water is not just for you, but also for the animals. When on your way out, if time permits only, shut the power off and obviously the gas. Last thing you need is to have water pouring on electricity, or worse yet, further fires created by the power being on. So if you can, turn the power off, but certainly when the fires get there, that's one of the things they will look after. Turn the gas off, time permitting, get that turned off as well. That's the last thing you need, is more gas and more potential fuel around the area. The other thing is wool blankets. We'll talk more about those in a minute, but that is one of the things that you can use to help prevent radiated heat burns. So having wool blankets, wool shirts, long sleeve shirts, long pants, definitely shoes. So have those sort of things readily available. Okay, with the the fire kit, I've just put down a couple of ideas here, and it's important as part of your plan is that you create something that is comfortable for you guys. So what I've got is, for the house plan, the kit, must have a plan, paramount above all else, plan and a checklist. Just go through the checklist. Do this at least once a year. Animal cages, making sure they're close and easily accessible, especially if you've got small kids. Invariably, if it's during the night, one of the first things that goes out, of course, is your electricity. So having torches, lights can, even in when the lights are on, in smoke, having a torch or a light can make a big difference. And when possible, is squint your eyes. Don't have to have them wide open. Squint, because that'll help mitigate the radiated burns towards the eyes, but also it'll help you protect your eyes a little more. Having a first aid kit, obviously, around the house. A fairly substantial first aid kit is worth having it, but making sure that it's in an area that is easily accessible on your way out. Copious quantities of drinking water, of course, bottles, preferably not glass, because that will shatter, or perhaps you drop it and it breaks. However, plastic, you can get metal water containers is probably the better way to go. So obviously drinking water is good. Wool blankets, again, as discussed, fantastic. Wool is a natural fire resistant. So it will help protect you and I from fire, from this radiated heat. Plus, it will keep you warm once you get outside if it's raining or miserable. But wool blankets don't ever throw those away. Always keep them around because they can be of use. Your spare car keys. It's crazy just to get outside and get to your muster point only to find that your keys are inside the house. So having spare keys either on the vehicle at all times, preferably not, but certainly somewhere that is accessible from the outside. And obviously fire extinguishers. Having fire extinguishers in and around the house, and letting the kids know, mum, dad, and the kids, how to use those fire extinguishers, what needs to be looked at, what needs to be done. Okay, a couple of things. Car and your fire kit for your car. Yeah, we think, she'd be right. We'll just jump in the car and off we go. Well, you may have to drive through the flames. So, big things, mask is, as you can see, is one of the bigger things that will help mitigate sort of lung or respiratory issues. Again, a plan and a checklist for the car. Water for you, the family, and the animals, because they will need as much as you do, in fact, more so. And they can be pretty stressed a lot quicker and a lot sooner than we would get stressed. So having lots of water. You can also use the water for putting out the fire if you have to. So it's definitely worthwhile. First aid kit. One of the things this first aid kit in the car should be able to look after things of shock, burns, fire burns. It should be able to look after cuts. Perhaps you had to walk out and break a window. So perhaps some cuts, things like that. So having that sort of stuff in a little more substantial first aid kit outside is great. There's that wool blankets again. They can be used even in the car. If the car does get run over by fires or the flames, you can hide underneath the wool blankets in the back seat or in the car and remain reasonably protected, not only by the radiated heat, but also from the overall smoke, things like that. And of course, having torches and lights, that would be inevitably useful. Fire plan considerations. These are absolute must. Have a plan, regardless. Write it down, draw, and explain it to the family. Best thing is get them involved. So having a plan, outstanding idea. Making sure the fire alarms are working. Okay, check now, right now. Just put this on break, go and check your fire alarms. And at least a couple of times a year. If in doubt, if it's a year ago that you replaced the batteries, change the batteries. The fire alarms are, some of them that are connected to the house power, they do have a battery in them. And if your house power has gone out for a while, potentially those batteries would need replacing. So regardless, check your fire alarms regularly. There are different types of fire alarms available on the market, not in just for smoke, for heat, for infrared, all those sort of things. Check on the one that's going to be the most advantageous for you. Fire extinguishers, making sure they're in date, they're practically located, and does your family know how to use them? If they're out of date, if they're not reusable, then perhaps taking it to the fire department and getting your local fireys to give you a chance to use that fire extinguisher. They'll show you how to use it. And in fact, it's not a bad idea once a year just to have a refresher. Arrange with your local department and do some training on your fire extinguishers. What about car keys and keys? Car keys, obviously, we've talked about having a spare set of keys outside, close to availability on the car, in case you leave yours in a burning house. And obviously the keys for the windows or security doors that are in the house, you need to get out. Where are those keys located? Hopefully close to where you need to get out on your emergency exits. Make sure with your emergency exits you've got at least, and that you talk to the kids or yourself about it, is having at least 2 emergency exits. One is your primary exit that you're heading for immediately. If that one is engulfed in heat, then you go to your secondary. One of the things is do not open a door that is hot. So put your hand on it. If it feels like it's hot on the other side, don't open it. Go and find your secondary exit. Generally what that means is there's a hell of a hot fire on the other side of the door, and that's the last thing you need, is to open a door and let more fire in. So the other thing is obviously torches. Again, usually when there's a fire, the power is one of the first things that goes out. So having torches does give you a great deal more control on what needs to be done. Okay, your fire plan considerations. Wool blanket, we've discussed already. Wool is one of the best fire-resistant products on the market, and it's a good insulator to the radiated heat. They're easy, they're inexpensive, but they can be terrific. One of the things with that, as we mentioned earlier, is in the back of the car, if you do have to go through flames, wrap the kids up or the animals in the blanket, and it will help them. It'll help insulate them from the radiated heat and to an extent some of the smoke as well. And at the end point, once you're outside, at least you've got some blankets to keep you warm. Evacuation, exit points, doors, windows, where are you going to get out? Keeping in consideration that some of those doors and windows may have security screens on them. So can you break the window and get out through that way? You may have to consider something else. So these are part of your fire consideration plan. Muster point. You need somewhere that's outside where everybody can aim for. Something that is out in the open, that is established, safe, and clear for everyone to get for. It's a lot easier doing a head count when everybody's heading to the same spot than everybody's running around in every different direction. So having one common muster point is a good idea. Animals and birds, absolutely. Catch them, cage them is the best way to control them. If you put a leash on them, you'll find they are still not going to be controllable. Once they run away, you're going to be pretty upset and you're going to be focused on that rather than the safety of your family. So animals, birds, put them in a cage, put the blanket over them, and they'll settle down a lot quicker. I've been in vehicles where animals have been allowed to run around, such as cats, and you know how sharp those claws can be. And it's amazing within a few seconds how much pain they can inflict when they're under stress. So, cage them. What and where? Well, it's important that all your important documents, passports, wills, mortgage, insurance, and bank documents, family heirlooms, things like that, are in a fireproof safe, preferably. If not, then they are, hopefully you've let your family somewhere else, or the family in a lot safer place, looking after those documents for you. It's really uncomfortable when you go well after the fact and try and get insurance perhaps, or you've lost your passport, your will's no longer in existence. Look after that sort of stuff. Sounds very simple, but it saves you so much angst after the fact. Clothes and shoes. Well, I tell you, personal items help mitigate shock. They help the disorientation and improves their resilience and the healing process. So especially with kids, if they have something that is theirs, a toy, and certainly some clothes, some shoes, it just makes them go through this transition a hell of a lot more comfortable. So clothes should be long sleeve, long pants. Shoes should be leather. And the clothes shouldn't be plastic. They shouldn't be nylon or things like that. Should be wool, preferably, but if all else fails, cotton, but certainly no synthetic materials. They will melt. And when they melt on flesh, it's not a pretty sight. Okay, family involvement. Get the family involved. This is their plan as much as yours. And as much as they're involved, and you don't know when there's, situation, accidents are going to occur or fire's going to occur. So it's better off that everybody is involved than you telling everybody this is the way it's going to be. It works, but if they are involved, then they have a vested interest. So knowledge and practice makes perfect. Train and practice. Sounds pretty hideous, doesn't it? But the reality is, in a stressful situation, in smoke, when you know there's fire around there, people react totally differently, especially if they've never had that experience. So it's a good idea, put a blindfold on, make it a little bit of an adventure for the kids, and get them to go from their bedroom perhaps to the primary exit and the secondary exit. Where's the keys for those areas? Let's try and catch the dogs or the cats when we've got blindfolds on. Where all that sort of stuff is vital. Because when you get that smoke, you may think, yeah, I can be able to see through that. I can assure you, some days you might be able to. But most often than not, under stress, heat, lots more smoke, you will not be able to see through that. So train and practice often. Waiting for the fire to threaten the things that you cherish the most could have devastating consequences. So don't wait. Prepare, act, and survive. Down the bottom, if you wish, you can add some comments, and by all means, share this presentation with anybody and everybody. Cheers.